Last Saturday of the year, we on the cusp of 2023, and it's really a blessing to be at this place at this time. Because so many of us didn't make it to the end of 2022. Normally my partner's here, Romane, but unfortunately, well, fortunate for her, she's going to be spending time with some family, which is something that we all need to do more, especially this time during this season. But she will be with us in spirit. But today, since we are on the cusp of 2023, and there is so much ahead for us, I have a guest joining us who maybe give us a little insight on what to expect in 2023. This lady I've known for a number of years, and I can't even call her a friend. She's more like family. And, I have been, well, she's been actually doing my astrological chart for a number of years. And this lady is so precise, so accurate. I mean, the first time she did my chart, she knew so much about me it almost scared me. And, she's well known in the circles of astrology, numerology. I talked to the well-known numerologist, Lloyd Strayhorn, and mentioned her name, and he was like, oh, I know her. So, without further ado, I have to introduce to some, and I guess reacquaint with others, none other than Aisha Grice. Good morning, Aisha.
Good morning. My picture is stuck. Is there a way to unstuck me?
I don't know whose end that's on.
Okay,
Yeah,
hold on one second.
Yeah.
he's working on it.
Oh, okay,
There's little technical difficulties.
because you have a picture of my daughter who was trying to help me to get on,
Ah,
and then there was me on the far left, but we're stuck.
All right, I'm gonna take you out. I'm gonna bring you back in.
Now all I have is a picture of you. Okay, here comes the stock picture again. What the world?
That's got to be on your end. There's nothing here on my
yeah, it
end.
might be on your end.
Hey Kim, she's gonna kill me.
Hmm,
Hey Kim,
I don't think she'll do that.
every time I have a problem, I either call her or my great grand Siobhan. Say, can you help me? Hey Kim,
I get it.
I'm afraid to click on this thing because it says,
Well,
okay,
we can hear you anyway, and
it says disable
maybe
camera.
we'll get the video back up.
Yeah, when she come back, have her disable your camera and restart your camera.
Yeah, because that may do it.
Yeah,
But in the
there you
meantime,
go.
right?
So you disable the camera now. Restart the
Yeah.
camera, and you should be good to go.
Are you still there?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, y'all can start, and once her
So
camera come up,
anyway,
we'll pick it up.
for those who don't know, you have been doing astrology for well over 5 decades. Is that correct?
Um, 5 decades is 50 years. Yeah.
Okay. And you had a
Actually, I
column
started
in
when I was.
Essence magazine.
Turn your cell phone down in the background.
You were getting some
Okay.
feedback.
You got your cell phone on or something?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm
turn
gonna,
the
I'm
volume
gonna
down
You're
on
turn
your
it
cell
getting
off.
phone.
feedback.
I turned it off.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So you had a column in Essence magazine, right?
Yes. I worked for Essence magazine for 25 years
Wow.
doing the astrology column, and I did center of the book articles, which was about 2,000 words. Yeah.
25 years.
Yeah.
So you
It
had a
seems
pretty
like a
illustrious
long time,
career.
but it went by really fast.
Yeah. Unfortunately, life goes by really fast.
Right.
You look around and, where did the last 25 years go? I ask myself that quite often. So now, a few weeks back, we had actually Romane and I contacted you about preparing a chart for Romane. Were you able to do that?
Oh, sure. Except Romane did not know what time she was born. So
Right,
what we did was a solar chart.
right. So I guess, does that mean you sort of approximated?
Well, it won't give the houses. In the charts, we have 10 planets and 12 houses.
Hmm.
But in a chart that does not have the time, we don't have the house system. All we have is the planets and the signs that they're in,
Okay.
which gives a pretty good glimpse. Let me see if I could get Kimberly.
So Romane, I believe, is listening. She said she was pretty anxious to hear what it is you come up with. So what did you discover? Because I know she asked you some specific questions.
Yeah, if she gave permission, when we took on this whole role of reading charts, we took a vow of silence, whereas we would not give the information from another chart to, somebody who's not involved. They would, even if you were married, you would have to give permission. So if
Ah,
Roman says it's okay, then I can tell you, that from what she gave uh, me, she was born under the sign of Capricorn.
yes, yes.
And in Capricorn is a sign that says I use or I've been used. It's ruled by the planet Saturn. And that says that she's a take care of business, hardworking individual, somebody that you can trust. Career means a lot to her. And something else is coming up on the screen that looks weird.
Yeah, I think I see what you're looking at.
Yeah, I just took it off, turned it off.
Okay, so wonder why this is not working. It works for Family Zoom.
Yeah, sometimes
Um,
we just get those technical glitches.
okay, so she's a cat. And Capricorns are usually concerned about business, taking care of business. Capricorn rules large corporations, politicians. She may decide somewhere in her life that she wants to run for office just for some reason. But we also have, that's where the sun was at when she took her first breath, when she decided to come back to Earth. And then we have the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. So we'll deal with the moon. The moon is in the sign of Virgo, which is also, it's an earth sign, a take care of business. I don't know whether she's in the field of health or some service field, but Virgo is the sign that says I analyze. And Virgo is more earthbound and concerned with what they can see, feel, hear, or touch. So, it takes a while before Virgo says, there might be something else out there, because they're really earthbound and also concerned about doing something for the community, doing something to help other people.
Well,
She
I'll
also,
tell you something. You have pretty much described Romane to the T. Um,
really,
yeah,
I had no idea.
in fact, Romane is so concerned about the community that she is having a program in May to assist those who have mental illness, We're going to
Oh,
be
really?
having, yes, we're going to be having an event called Project 33 on Main Street here in Stroudsburg. And this was all, something that she dreamed up, issue that is very near and dear to her heart. And, she has always been the person who's been community minded as long as I've known her. So, yeah, you're quite accurate with that. I hope she's listening and she hears this. And if she gets a chance, maybe she'll call in. I know I spoke to
Yeah,
her.
because I had no idea. I said I don't know what this sister is into, but
Yeah.
it's deep.
Yeah, well, I spoke to her on my way in to the studio, and she said that she was on her way to Philadelphia. And unfortunately, she may not be able to call. And when you're traveling, you have dead spots along the road, and then the weather conditions are not optimal for driving. But from what I've heard
Right.
thus far, you are pretty accurate with Romane. I mean, and I'm sure she'll be very pleased with what she's heard thus far. But
Right.
there's one thing I'd like to clarify because I know a lot of people that listen, that are our listeners, and people that I'm quite close to. They have an issue with things like numerology and astrology. Some
I
are
know.
under the belief that it's witchcraft, right, and that there's some demonic component to astrology. And, it's interesting that it is just the study of the celestial bodies or the movement of the celestial bodies. And,
Right.
according to the Bible, the three wise men followed a celestial body to the place
Yes.
where Jesus was born. So that apparently was okay. That was not demonic. But now, if you do it, somehow it has become demonic. So, how do you respond to those who say that this is demonic or in some way evil?
Um, if they're Christians, I give them the same love and respect that they should be giving me if they're true to their faith, because I understand that they don't understand. God created the universe. He created the cosmos, and so whatever is happening in the heavens is under God's domain. We simply use the chart as a guide, whether to help us to make sound decisions. However, we are in control. We are in control of the decisions that we make in this life. The stars don't control us. We only react to what's going on and make a decision as to whether we're going to be loving and kind and help our neighbor, and you know what I'm saying. And that has nothing to do with whether you were born a Capricorn or whether you were born a Leo or whether you were born an Aquarian.
Right.
That comes from the soul, the inner essence of the person.
Hmm.
So I don't, and what's really funny, Ron, sometimes I have to laugh to myself because we've taken a vow of silence, but I know many ministers who get their charts done, and they don't want other people to know, because when they stand up in the pulpit, they're denouncing it. But in the meantime, they're saying, Aisha, what time can we get together, just to take a look, and it's so interesting to me that, it's weird because there was one time when I was working with two women, we were giving these huge conferences in New York, and they wanted me to meet their minister. So I said, okay, I'm going to meet the guy, but I'm going to tell him who I am and what I do, And they were like, oh, Aisha, please don't embarrass us in front of our minister. So we go up to this guy and, hi, this is Aisha Grace. And I said, hi. I said, I just have one question for you. When were you born? He came back with, I'm a Leo with the moon in Taurus and an Aquarius rising. I was like, oh, So how is it that he knew his sun, moon, and rising? You know what I'm saying? And he was totally. He said, "Yeah." He says, "You can't let everybody know what you're into." But my wife was also a Pisces. I was like, "This is too funny." My friends were standing there with their mouths hanging out open because they thought I was going to embarrass them by asking him what his birth information was. And so it goes.
But I don't. Well, the person I spoke to yesterday, very dear friend of mine, who said she would be listening in today, and I hope she is.
Mm,
Um, her, I guess, her issue with astrology is not so much the movement of the celestial bodies, because if you believe, you know, God is in control of the universe, then it is the power of God in the universe that causes the universe to be in motion.
you're right.
She said that's not the problem. The problem is that um, what happens is people make predictions based on um, what the information they receive from an astrologer or numerology or whatever field it is, or whatever they may go to seek information. And she said, there's a scripture in the Bible that says, if you are seeking information, simply ask God. Um, you know, that sounds good. It really does. But I guess the question is, does God answer every prayer? Now, who knows the answer to that, right?
Right.
People will say, well, God hears the prayers of the righteous. But, righteous people die every day, right? Righteous
Right.
people get sick. Righteous people, are involved in accidents, some fatal. So there are a lot of righteous people that are suffering, waiting for God to answer those prayers. And, you know, we talked about yesterday the fact that perhaps what we're doing is we're waiting when we actually are the answers that we seek. It is within us to
Right.
save ourselves, to motivate ourselves, to free ourselves. Yet,
Right.
I don't want to get off onto a religious debate, but I just think that
I know, Ron, I used to carry around a lot of scriptures that would prove that it's okay to believe in astrology, and then I just stopped because there's so many people who do believe, and taking care of all of those people, I can't deal with the negatives that come up and say, "Oh, gee, you're going to burn in hell because you're doing this." God bless you. You know, God does answer prayer in His own time,
right,
and so the astrology chart is a great vehicle to show timing of things. For instance, Aquarians are dealing with a slowing up of affairs. I have a nephew who's an Aquarius, and he calls me. He's got a not for profit, and sometimes people are not getting back to him, and I'll say, "Michael, Saturn is in Aquarius. Just be patient. It's going to happen. You have the right thing in your heart to, he's helping college students and he's traveling all over the world, but sometimes he gets anxious, you know and I don't understand why so and so didn't email me back right away. Well, sometimes life catches up with you, and right now we are experiencing Mercury going retrograde and Mars is going retrograde, and so there are a lot of delays that are happening. Look at what happened in New York and LaGuardia, people sleeping in the airport for 3 days,
hmm
saying because they intended to go home for Christmas, but they ended up spending Christmas on the floor in the airport, and, you know, so, I mean, we can't, we're told to have faith also. And faith is believing in something before it happens, not after it happens, but before it happens, to have the faith that whatever it is the healing will come through, the job will come through if it's supposed to be, the finances will change if you're doing what needs to be done to change it. Um, so anyway, I think that we need to learn how to flow in this life, and deal with, like I'm living back in New York City. Oh my goodness. you know I did not want to live here. I would, Poconos was like heaven to me.
Right.
But my great granddaughter needed some help, and my oldest daughter and I are co-parenting. I decided that it was right for me to do that because guess what? Somebody rescued me when I needed. My mother walked off and left me and my sister, just disappeared. And my grandmother stepped in and she raised us. So I felt like what goes around comes around. Now it's your turn
Absolutely.
to, to a
Absolutely.
child who is in need. And I never felt like I owed her anything. She was a Christian woman and she did what she was supposed to do. And she loved us and raised us and never complained, you know. So here we go. We believe in the law of karma. What goes out comes back. What goes up comes down. What goes around comes around, as the elders say, and it really does.
Well, those are universal laws that, we all need to be familiar with. I mean, whatever your belief, whether you're a Christian, Muslim, whether you're Jewish, Hebrew Israelite, all of us believe that if we do good, there is a reward, which is basically the law of karma. But
Right.
what I wanted to get back to very briefly is you talked about Aquarians. And of course, that piqued my interest because, as you well know, I'm an Aquarian.
Right.
So when you said things are, I guess, being somewhat delayed, right? Um, so this delay, well, tell me a little more. How would you describe this delay for Aquarians?
Well, things are not going straightforward, as in Aquarians and air signs, so you're used to things going fast. And you may feel like you're working harder and getting less results. But the beauty of having Saturn in an Aquarius is you're planting seeds that will eventually grow.
Ah,
And so if you keep the faith, keep doing what you're doing. Guess what? In March of 2023, Saturn moves out of Aquarius into Pisces. And so a lot of the things that you planted in the past 2 years, this has been going on for 2 years, will come to fruition. So if you stay with it and believe in yourself, and just ask yourself, why are you doing what you're doing? Are you doing it for your own ego gratification, or are you doing it to help someone else? And so,
hmm, that's interesting. Very
right.
interesting. And you said
What is
that would
your,
occur in March.
yes, in March, you'll see a shift and actually 2023 is much going to be much different than 22. Um, I'm not that deep into Chinese astrology, but the year 2022 was the year of the tiger, according to Chinese astrology, and the year 2023 is going to be the year of the rabbit. So you see the difference in those animals. They use different animals than we do, but
Hmm.
basically it's the same thing. You know, um, this is going to be a shift and a change in what is happening, in the cosmos as these long distance planets start to change signs. And we're ready for it, because I felt like 2022, I felt like everything was the same. Once we thought we were rid of COVID, oops, somebody that gets COVID, and you're saying, wait a minute, I thought we were done with this. But we're not done with that. But we are slowly coming to a shift and a change where there will be less people dying of COVID than, when we first discovered it, like in 2020.
Hmm. Okay, so based on what you've seen thus far, I guess my question is, does 2023, um, I guess the question is, does it appear a lot better than 2022? Because 2022 for a lot of people was a rough year. Coming out of the pandemic, so many job losses, so many businesses closed. Um, so many people lost money with the economic downturn, prices skyrocketing, more and more people being forced out into the streets. So, what do you see for 2023?
I'm seeing more of a collective understanding of how we should reach to each other and help each other. The whole thing of homelessness is huge in New York City. Everywhere you go, you see somebody, and I think that our duty, if we believe in God, if we are true Christians, we should be helping these people. Instead, we get kind of used to seeing this and we become numb to it, in a sense. We don't see it anymore. But we have to do something. Our mayor, Eric Adams, said that he was going to start collecting these people who are talking to themselves and showing some mental off balance. And whether they want to or not, he was going to send them to a facility to have them checked out. And people are in the outrage about that, saying that's not fair. You're going to be violating people's lives. But he's saying, you see somebody talking to themselves, and the next thing you know, they're pushing somebody on the tracks. We have to do something.
Well, I understand that Mayor Adams has to take some action, but
Right,
legally, you cannot remove people from the streets simply because they're talking to themselves. All of us at some point talk to ourselves, right? And sometimes you think someone's talking to themselves, you're not even aware of the fact that they have an earbud in and that they're actually engaged in a
right,
conversation. So from a
right.
legal standpoint, he's not going to be able to do that. I mean, I guess if his heart is in the right place and he's concerned about the welfare of these people and the safety of the citizens of New York, I can understand his wanting to take some action. But that action certainly isn't legal, and the ACLU will be all over that. But what's interesting, since you mentioned New York, I've been following the story of your newly elected senator, George Santos,
All right.
which very interesting story. This Mr. Santos won election to the U.S. Senate based on a completely fictitious resume. Everything about this man is fake. And what's even more interesting is the fact that if you apply for a job and your resume is found to be fake, you are going to be fired. You're never going to get that job. In some cases, depending on the position you're applying for, there may be some civil or criminal penalties. How is it someone who has a completely fictitious resume, everything about them is a lie? I mean, how can we be sure his real name is George Santos? How do you get a job? I mean, because as a senator, your application process is the voters. The voters have a certain degree of trust in you and faith in you, only to find out they don't even know who you are. So I just find it
Right.
very interesting. And when to be a Republican and another former politician who is out of office doesn't say anything in your defense, I think you're in really bad shape. When, the person that you once referred to as the orange clown does the same thing in your defense, I think you're really up the creek without a paddle. And it'll be very
Right.
interesting to see what happens, in the coming months as we get
He's
closer to him taking his seat.
It's amazing. The media stayed on the story every day. We hear about Santos in another lie that he has told. I forget what his chart was because this is what I do. I'm an astrologer. So I immediately went to Google and put his name in and then went to Wikipedia to find out what day, month, and year he was born.
Hmm.
Poor thing, he's got to step down because now, people from his own party are, saying he's got to go. I think that by the end of this week, which is, there's a full moon in Cancer, I think he'll probably be out of there. There's no way. I mean, what I don't like about these people is the arrogance and the stubbornness. It's like, I'm going to go. I don't care what you're saying. I'm still going to do my thing. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're going to step down, and it's going to be your own people who are going to tell you, you're making us look bad, buddy.
Well, something, for the last few years now, that has been the approach. I'm going to do what I want to do, regardless of if it's right
Regardless,
or
yes.
even if it's legal. I'm going to do that.
Right.
And for the last, I guess, 5 years, 6 years, um, the Republican Party was under the control of Donald J. Trump, who's a very interesting character. Did you ever do a chart on Mr. Trump?
Oh, of course.
And what conclusions did you reach on Donald?
It was interesting because what I saw was a spoiled individual who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth
Yes, he was.
and who was always given whatever it is that he wanted. And you can see that by certain aspects in a person's chart. And unfortunately, he has used it in negative ways. I think there's a blindsided kind of thing where he doesn't even see this anymore, how arrogant he is. What I don't really understand about Donald Trump is how many of our people are still supporting him. Like, you can't see the elephant in the room. Why are you still supporting this guy? And they like this arrogance that he has, like, hey, I'm going to do it my way and forget about you. And oh yeah, well, he may have had more votes than me, but he really stole the election.
Right, right.
And actually, there's a side thing that we haven't gotten into, but I am psychic sensitive.
Hmm.
And so, my friends were calling me. Some of my friends from up in the Poconos were saying, did you look at his chart for God's sake? And I'm like, it seemed like every time I would mess with his chart, something would happen.
Hmm.
Like the computer would go off, or I said, listen, he's dealing with some kind of demonic force, and I don't want that energy. I don't want to ingest that energy, whatever it is. He's going to pay the price for all of the people that he has hurt and for all of the money. Look at what's happening with his taxes now. People are getting into it like, oh, gee, I think maybe he. Well, of course, it's somebody who's refusing to show you his taxes for years. Why do you think he didn't want to? Like, common sense
Hmm.
would tell you that he was hiding something. So, I don't like to look, but, I do feel that, 2023 is going to be a much different year for Sir Donald
Hmm.
than, than it has been, before. And he's really hated in New York, which is his home. I was at some kind of business near Trump Tower, and I heard all this yelling and screaming, and I said, "Oh, it sounds like a demonstration." Like you hear people with some. I looked out the window, and these people, my friend was telling me, these people are out there every day. They're picketing the Trump. Trump was not even in the building, but they were yelling, Trump must go. I'm like, wow, people have been demonstrating and trying to get him. But then we have DeSantis, who is not much better than Sir Donald. They always have some. There's always some negative energy that we have to deal with on this plane. There's the cause and the effect. The what goes up comes down. What goes in comes out. So we could get rid of Donald, but then we have to deal with DeSantis, who is from
Well,
Florida. Is it Florida?
yeah, DeSantis. But something, going back to Santos, George Santos, you know, I would argue that we we might even be in some ways better off with Donald Trump than George Santos. And I say that because I, like you, from New York, right? I know you lived there for so long. I was born and raised there. For those of us that lived in New York, were familiar with New York politics and um, familiar with Donald Trump, we knew who Donald Trump was. This is not a surprise when he took
Right.
office that he conducted himself in such a way. You know, going back to the Central Park jogger case, when he took out a full page ad in every New York periodical, basically calling for the death of these five young men who we found out later on did nothing wrong.
Right. But
But the
you see,
fact is,
goes around, comes around. On the day that we dedicated a wall in Central Park to the exonerated, they're now the exonerated five,
mhm,
was
and
the day that Trump was called up on charges for something, something, something. He was mentioned in the January 6th committee's report as being, guilty. And, they're talking about bringing him up on charges. It was on the same day.
mhm,
Some of the speakers said they would love to see his face when he realizes that these kids are being honored in Central Park now. And he put them through, he did that. He took out full page ads for their death before trial. They
mhm.
hadn't even had a trial, you know, and so he kind of, saturated the energy with this negativity so that it was impossible to get a fair jury,
Right.
period. 'Cause-
Yeah, and the dedication of the wall, it was a long time coming, long overdue.
yes,
For these young teenage boys who spent so much time incarcerated for a crime that was known from day one that they did not commit. And,
right,
um, there was one of the officers or the detectives involved who made his career off of that case, who went on to become a journalist for Fox 5 News, based on his involvement with this case, knowing that there was no evidence that even suggested that they had anything to do with this violent crime.
oh
It,
yeah,
yeah, but
it's
it really is. But what I was saying is, with Donald Trump, you know who he is, you know what to expect. With George Santos, you don't even know if that's his real name. Nothing about him is authentic.
right,
So, and from what I understand, the district attorney in Long Island, I believe, where he was elected, is looking into his finances now because they're trying to determine where did he get $700,000 to loan his campaign when all of his work history is completely fictitious. So where does he get all of this money? And despite that, he says he's still going to take his seat. But he said he will not seek re-election. So I guess he
Oh,
figures that that's a compromise. Is that your
right.
yeah?
Could you help me? Because the picture will not come on. Um, I need to
Oh,
call my daughter. You know what? The Santos thing is getting really, really tired and weary. Here's another one. Another one. He just falls in line with a whole lot of others who are that arrogant and that privileged and I have the right to do this, and you know what I'm saying? It's
mhm.
like, come on. This is what I'm hoping that happens in 2023, that we start to gather together, those of us of like minds, and deal with these people, these Santos people, because his energy, what he's starting to say is that he's a victim because he's a homosexual,
Yeah,
and
and I think
it has nothing to do with it.
nothing to do, and I hope the LGBTQ community distances themselves from George Santos. This was not something you brought up prior to. Now that you have been caught red handed, now all of a sudden you're a victim because you're gay? No, come on. I think
Right.
that the LGBTQ community should see right through that and realize and come to the realization that he is trying to scapegoat the community to his own advantage. And let's be realistic. How do we know that's true? How do we know he is gay? Everything he said thus far is a lie. So
Right.
how do we know that is the truth and that we should even accept that? I mean, if a person has lied to you about every aspect of their life, maybe that's a lie too. But it's just good to hear that 2023 holds some promise because 20 after the pandemic and during the midst of the pandemic, it was very, very bleak across this country, across the entire world.
Right.
And, you know, 2022 initially was almost a breath of fresh air. And I mean that literally when you could take off those masks
Right.
and you could begin to congregate again with family. Yes, you had to use caution, but you were able to see family members again without fear. And I guess now we're approaching 3 years or 2 years, excuse me, post the start of the pandemic. So to hear that 2023, my with appearance is going to be a better year, that should be encouraging to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah.
We have to learn how to connect with the people who believe the same way, who share the same values. We need to, there are already groups out there, you know, people who are guided to help humankind. We need to understand that there is not that much difference in any of us.
Very
You
little.
know, my grandfather used to say when we were growing up, we used to have these crushes on movie stars, and he would say, "Baby girl, you know what? He puts his pants on the same way I do, one
That's,
leg at a time."
that's absolutely true. 100% true.
And that was true. It
Mhm.
was like, okay, now why are you falling out about this star? And we've just become a society that gets all caught up in stardom and wanting to know who's sleeping with who and who's doing who, and it's none of your business, number one.
Hmm.
Number two, there's nothing you can do about it. um, so you're just preoccupied with stuff that takes you away from the real reason why we are here. We are here to use our gifts and our talents to help others, believe it or not. It's as simple as that.
Well, you know, the government and the media want to keep us distracted. And you know, the reason being they don't want us to fully grasp how bad things are in this country economically, socially, politically, in terms of the crumbling infrastructure, the rising cost of everything, inflation, the crumbling, you know, roads and bridges. So they want to keep us distracted with fluff. And it seems
Right.
to work very well. But I have a question for you because, you know, some of our listeners may be intrigued by what they heard, and they might want to say, you know what, maybe I'll get my chart done. So, how would they be able to get in touch with you?
Um, they could get in touch with me on Facebook Messenger,
Hmm.
or my email is my first and last name, Aisha Grice, at gmail.com.
So that
And
is AYESHAGRICE, correct?
yes,
Okay,
Aisha Grice at gmail.com.
okay. Just so that our listeners, you know, have a way to contact you, you know, because what you said about Romany, and I know I've known Romany over 20 years, and you were dead on with just a little bit you shared. You were dead on, and I'm sure, as I said before, she would be very pleased, and I hope she is able to listen in and hear what it is you said, you know, as it relates to her um, chart, because it is very, very close to, you know, the person I know, you know, Romany to be, and
Right.
you know,
There's
and
so much more there
oh,
also.
I know, and hopefully, you know, she will reach out to you and hear everything that you know you've seen in her chart, and that you know it really is refreshing, you know, because there's so much, so many aspects of our character, and you know what's interesting, a lot of people, you know, people are born and people come into the world, they're born, people leave the world daily, right? But in that time between birth and between when we leave, there is so little time devoted to understanding who we are.
Right.
We are so preoccupied with learning about others that we never really learn about ourselves, who we are. We never really get in touch with ourselves. So you see it constantly. You know, you talked about mental illness, and maybe an aspect of mental illness, and of course I'm not an expert, but maybe an aspect of mental illness is not understanding who you are and being caught up into the madness that goes on in this world. And you know, you've read some of my writings. I describe America as an asylum for the criminally insane. And it is. And it is. You know, when you see, just look at what happened on January 6th of 2020. And you
It
know,
was amazing.
you know, it was, this hasn't happened since the war of 1812, that people invaded the US Capitol. And this
Right.
was not a foreign adversary, it was American citizens. And you know, in hindsight, I can understand their frustration because for so many years, people are ignored and marginalized, and no one appears to be listening or hearing their cries,
Right.
right? So I can understand that. But
But you know,
what were you gonna say?
I'm sorry for interrupting, but it's in the DNA.
Hmm.
It's in the American people's DNA, this violence to take what you think belongs to you. Actually, you're taking, look at how this country was founded. on violence. They went across this country and took land from people who were peacefully living there for generations and said, "This belongs to me." That narcissistic energy. It's like, so that's what I was seeing, um, as they were marauding, and they did a lot of stuff. They were defecating on things and peeing on stuff, and not only were they just scaring the bejesus out of people, but that's in their DNA.
Hmm.
That's they think that if they take it, I have the right to take it. They believe in the gun. The gun is their almighty. They believe. Don't tell me you're a Christian and you believe in the Bible. You believe in the gun. And so you had your guns out and you injured people, and some people got killed. So of course I'm looking at all that, and doing the charts and everything, and saying, this is an interesting situation that is happening here. And I would not be surprised if we have another situation like that happens. I don't know what happened to the that's on their end.
Well, I think
So,
that I don't know what the planet, or should I say, the planets are showing as it relates to another uprising. But I really believe that it is bound to happen
somewhat.
because what we have is America's called a melting pot, right? Well, in order for stuff to melt, you have to heat it up, right? And when you apply heat to people, well, things begin to boil. And we're having that boiling situation in this country. You know, things just happen inexplicably. Um, the suspect in the killing of 4 Idaho college students was found here in the Poconos. Less than
Right.
half hour from where I'm sitting right now. This guy was, and again, he's accused, so um, I want to be fair because supposedly in this country, the media has, of course, changed that, where you have the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. But if, in fact, he is the person responsible, what would make a young man who's seeking his doctoral degree enter onto another campus where he did not attend and stab to death 4 people? What's going on in America where another young man who threatened to blow up his house and kill his own mother, had his charges dismissed, goes out and buys an assault rifle, walks into a club, a gay club in Colorado, and opens fire. So what's happening in America? Have we lost our collective minds? Because you see this on a regular basis, and it's to the point now where we become almost desensitized to it. Every
Right.
time it happens, you get the same response from the government. Oh, our thoughts and prayers are with the families, but
Thoughts and
what
prayers.
in terms of action? I mean, if you could just get access to purchases of firearms, there's been no reduction in the sale of assault rifles. They're flying off the
Right.
shelves. So, are we learning anything? You know, for America, is there any hope? I guess having been born in America, you want to be optimistic for this country. But when you look at the conditions and the people and the actions of people, it's pretty dismal for the future of
Right.
the country. Yeah.
Right. There's that love of guns that begins, in childhood, when you buy your kid a gun and they pretend like they're shooting, which we never allowed the children in our family to have toy guns, because a toy gun can become a real gun in their minds. What they're seeing. Look at the film industry. How, I'm wondering how they can concentrate on the negativity that they put out. Because you have to write the screenplay, you have to learn the lines, you got to hire the actors, and people go and sit there. There's supposed to be a movie out now that I don't know the name of it, that's making people pass out because the images are so negative. People are vomiting in the theater, and I'm like, why do you pay money to go see this stuff? Stop supporting it. I mean, I think the person who made the most sense to me was Frances Cress Welsing, when she was saying that it's in the DNA. It's in the DNA.
Well,
This whole thing, if you don't have it, then it's okay to take it. Or it's okay to just mindlessly stab somebody to death. This is what's happening in our subways, just
yes.
mindless stabbing of random. You don't know this person. This person never did anything to you, so you just, what is this killer thing? And like I'm just thinking about my dear grandmother who raised me. When we would do something wrong, she would say, "What's wrong with you? Are you possessed of the devil?"
Hmm.
It's like this negative energy is out there. And so, in order to protect ourselves, we need to surround ourselves with the light and the love of Jesus Christ, or whatever you choose to call the higher power, and connect with other like minds of, before you interact with the others.
You know, um, One of the things that I discussed actually was yesterday with my good friend. I talked about the fact that when you discuss like minds, one of the difficulties in forming a connection with like-minded people, we always have to be cautious of religion. Because it is a major part of many people's lives. And even though we deal with situations where our commonality goes way beyond just where you attend church or if you attend church, no one asked Sandra Bland, "Hey, are you Christian?"
Right,
before he arrested her and she died in police custody. No one asked George Floyd, "Hey, are you Muslim? What is your religious background?" before they kneeled on his neck and
right,
read nearly 9 minutes. We have so many struggles to overcome as a people. The last thing we need dividing us is religion. And I'm not saying it's something that needs to be done away with. What I'm saying is sometimes we need to put the focus less on religion and more on what we have in common and our common struggles, and let's work together. The civil rights movement never could have been successful had it not been people putting aside religious dogma and doctrine and saying, "Hey, look, I'm a Southern Baptist, but I'm going to work with Church of God in Christ. I'm going to work with Hebrew Israelite. I'm going to work with anybody who's willing to work with me to do away with this evil that is segregation and Jim Crow." And today, we need to do the same thing. We need to put
right.
aside the religious dogma and
Yes.
just recognize the fact that we have so much that we need to accomplish for now and for our children in the future.
Right. We need to understand that we are all in human bodies and we all have the same basic needs. We need to be loved and respected.
Hmm.
Basically, that's what we need. And, I have been, yeah, I was raised in a Methodist household. And then I was given a job by the Baptists. And I went to my grandmother and I said, "Does it make any difference? I'm going to work for the Baptist." She says, "God doesn't care." She
Right.
said, "Do you think God cares whether you're a Baptist or a Methodist? You need a job. Go ahead and get it." And so the Baptists insisted that I become baptized in order to keep the job after the money started getting good to me. And so I went back to my grandmother and I said, "No, they're trying." She said, "Honey, it doesn't matter. God doesn't care. As long as you're a good person, you're being kind to people and animals, or the less fortunate, because she was that type of person. She was very loving and cared about her neighbors, loved one another as you would have God to love you."
Right.
So, getting back to Francis Cress Welsing, I mean, we need to bond with people who are loving, who care about humanity, who are quote unquote good people. And we need to learn to listen to one another and to have respect for one another, and kindness. There was a program on CBS that dealt a whole hour of kindness. People who were reaching out to their neighbors, doing things that were beyond belief, helping them.
Hmm.
And so this is what we have to do in order to survive. We have to bond with each other, help each other, love each other, be kind. Be kind. Care about that person. That could be you sleeping in the street. It's cold out there. And I, was concerned about the homeless, when the temperatures went down in this city. I don't know whether it happened in the Poconos, but
Oh, it most certainly did. And you know what? On that note of loving and caring and understanding, we're going to have to leave it there for now. But I would love to have you back because I'm
oh,
sure there are
okay.
going to be people that are going to have questions. I'm sure Romane, if she is listening, is going to have a number of questions, of her own, based on what she heard. So it was just a pleasure to have you come on. Um,
Yes.
you know,
Even though
it,
my picture didn't come up, and I got up this morning and I even, you know, put a pretty scarf on. And so maybe
well,
next time.
the next time maybe we'll be able to get you to come into the studio,
Right.
and we can sit and we can, maybe have people call
Yes.
in, answer questions, so that anybody who has a question related to their chart, or if we have those people who still are not sure if this is some demonic practice, they can call in as well and have some of their questions answered.
Okay.
But
It was
again,
beautiful.
it was a pleasure as always to have you on.
Yes.
And I look forward to having you come on again. And I will see you
Yes.
soon. And to you, your family, and to all who are listening, Happy New Year.
Oh, thank you. And Happy New Year to you too.
Thank you so
Peace
much.
and blessings to everyone.
Thank you so much. And you have a wonderful day.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Okay, that's it for Ron and Romany for this Saturday, the last Saturday of 2022. On behalf of Romany, we wish you all a healthy, peaceful, and prosperous new year. And thank you for listening.